So the official version that Muslims will, the most often version today that Muslims will say is that it means acts of generosity, which makes absolutely zero sense in context. That's definitely not what it means. But they'll claim that's what it means because I think they don't like the other ideas of what it might mean so much.
Yeah, so it says here, tahanuth in the Encyclopedia of Islam, adjective from the Hebrew, a form of religious devotion in which Muhammad is said to have been engaged 1 month each year in a cave on Hira. So he would go there and he would perform some kind of ceremony for a month. He would fast and do things in the cave. It has been hypothesized that tahanuth is the condition one assumes in law when one is liable to fulfill a binding vow, and thus that tahanuth, when referring to the Prophet, reflects the idea that he had made a vow to enter a period of retreat. That's fascinating. Okay, let me have a look here now. So, so they speak here of tahanuf means the adoption, the practice of Islam. This is a different source. The exercise of the true faith. So now you've got two sources that, I'll bring them next to each other. You've got two sources here that are contradicting each other, right? From the Encyclopedia of Islam, right? This one. And then this one, it means the adoption, practice of Islam, the exercise of the true faith. However, in the Hebrew, it means penance, to do penance.
Yeah, and I think that no one's quite sure exactly what it means, but I think it's definitely some sort of religious practice. He's definitely doing something intentional. He's not just in that cave, hanging
Yeah.
out or
Yeah, the
having a
Muslims are
good
making it
time.
up, but it's a known concept, I believe, from like the old Christian view, the old Hebrew view. It's just to do the act of penance.
Yeah, yeah. So he's there. I I think that for our purposes, it's sufficient to say that he's there and he's trying to connect with the spiritual world. To he's trying to have a revelation, let's say, that he is trying to connect with God. And then lo and behold, something happens. This description of the demon or angel pressing on him sounds a lot like sleep paralysis, which is interesting since this suggested that he might have been
Hmm.
getting visions in sleep. Now, sleep paralysis is when your mind wakes up, but your body is still in a sleep state. So you can't move your body. It's a very scary experience that people have. And because it's very, obviously it's terrifying, you're fully conscious and you can't move your body. You feel like you're paralyzed because but your mind naturally shuts off your body while you're sleeping. It's associated with demons. It's associated with demons coming upon people, and let's just say, quite often raping them. It's usually associated with sexual type
I've
demons.
said this, that is two things. That's interesting. I've said before, and I said that I haven't really dug into this in depth, but I've mentioned it to you as well. There's the story of Lilith,
Hmm.
right? And I'm not going to go into all the details, but Laylat, the hikmah, the knowledge, the wisdom, and so on. Laylat, Sophia, the wisdom. And the story of Lilith, and Lilith, the first wife of Adam, being the demon that eventually became evil. And she's a succubus. And she would take advantage of men sexually. She was banished to deserts, to dry places and caves. And also the simple fact that, and I haven't discussed this, I've been meaning to get around to it, but people don't realize that demonology was a huge, I mean, enormous integral part of pagan Arab culture at the time of Muhammad, and much longer than and prior to that. It was a big thing, and any prophet or poet, anyone who provided any kind of poetical recitation, anyone who did that would would be assumed to have been possessed by a demon. He had to have a demon familiar that would possess him, and the demon would speak. And the more powerful your recitation, the more powerful your demon. And he was proclaiming in the Quran that he doesn't want to be seen as a mad poet. So this is something that's downplayed in the Quran, but actually it was a massive part of the culture, that it was assumed and would have easily been assumed that he was demon possessed, that he was owned by a demon that would occasionally come and visit him and take over.
Yeah. So just keep that background in mind when we look at what Lloyd kind of just alluded to on the next slide, which is what Muhammad thought had happened. Muhammad says, so this is from the Life of Muhammad, common translation by Guillaume. Muhammad says, so I read it and he departed from me. So obviously he's translating as read rather than recite, but he's referring to what the demon told him to do. So after the demon squeezes him 3 times, then Muhammad is able to read or recite whatever. And he departed from me. And I awoke from my sleep. Well, hold on a second. Here in Life of Muhammad, it's explicit that Muhammad was asleep when this happened. Mm-hmm. That's been cleaned up in the Sahih Hadith versions, but here in the earliest biography of Muhammad, it's explicit that he was asleep. And it was as though these words were written on my heart. Now, none of God's creatures was more hateful to me than a poet or a man possessed. I could not even look at them. I thought, woe is me, poet or possessed. Never shall Quraysh say this of me. I will go to the top of the mountain and throw myself down that I may kill myself and gain rest. So this is Muhammad's initial impression, that he's been attacked by a demon. And when it says poet or man possessed, those are kind of 2 ways of saying the same thing.
So they're synonymous. It's actually in the Arab culture, that was synonymous. The greater the poet, the greater the demon that controlled him. The demon, the jinn, same thing.
Exactly. So Muhammad is thinking that he has been possessed to the point where he goes and tries to kill himself. Now, there's some confusion in the stories here. And
in fact, a good poet would give himself over to the demon for that period.
Indeed. So in Life of Muhammad, the order of events is that Muhammad has the experience in the cave, then he tries to kill himself, and then he is calmed down. In the Hadith, the same events happen, but they're in a different order. Muhammad has the cave experience, then he talks to Khadija and Waraka, which we'll get to here on a second, and then Waraka dies almost immediately after this happens to Muhammad in the cave, and then Muhammad tries to kill himself out of sadness that the revelations have stopped after the death of Waraka. But it seems to me that the more likely scenario is that Khadija was at the cave